Are we headed for the sixth mass extinction on Earth? Scientific evidence proves so. In the past 60 years, we have witnessed a collapse of almost 70% of abundant wildlife. Experts calculate that between 0.01 and 0.1% of all species will become extinct each year. That means between 200 and 2,000 extinctions occur every year. Humanity relies on five main species in order to survive: honeybees, bats, plankton, primates, and butterflies are these five main species. Honeybees safeguard the world's food supply by transporting pollen to various crops. Honeybees are not ultimately at risk of extinction, yet there are some various forms of bees that are. Human activities such as change in land use, industrialization, habitat destruction, climate change, air pollution, and pesticides are all contributing factors that harm the livelihood of bees. Bats also pollinate and disperse seeds. Without bats, ecosystems could collapse. There is a fungal disease that is killing North American bats called white nose syndrome, and is considered exotic, coming from Europe. This disease infects the skin of the muzzle, wings, and ears of bats, and has been destroying millions of bats since the early 2000s. Plankton are supporting almost every form of marine life in the food web. Phytoplankton create almost half of our air supply because they photosynthesize and oxygenate the ocean. Without these plankton, marine life could suffocate and deoxygenate. Rising sea temperatures are a serious risk to these valuable sea creatures, along with overfishing. Primates are very important to stabilizing our planet by dispersing seeds and pollen as well. Unfortunately, primates could go extinct within 25 to 30 years. Almost three-quarters of primates are facing extinction, and a little bit less than that are declining in population. Butterflies, moths, and birds are also the world's primary pollinators. Since the 1970s, birds have been dying more than birthing, mainly due to disease. Collisions with human-made structures, air pollution, and even food spoilage from human waste are all threats to the survival of birds. Moths are also declining worldwide, mainly due to pesticides, habitat destruction, and climate change. Five species of butterfly have gone extinct since the 1950s, 29 are considered endangered, and 6 are threatened. Overall, there are almost 40,000 wild species that are close to being endangered, and are half as likely to go extinct by the year 2050, mainly due to global warming, deforestation, overhunting, spread of disease, invasive species, overexploitation, and pollution. Slaughter plants are a danger to both workers and animals. Some animals even die before they even make it to the slaughter, from diseases, infections, and conditions while being raised while confined. The methods that every farm animal is killed is almost always inhumane and horrific, with methods consisting of throwing piglets on the ground in a very harsh manner to being starved to death. The harm affects the workers, communities, and the environment. Most farm animals die during their trip to the slaughterhouse from where they were originally raised at, and these numbers range from the hundreds of thousands to the millions. The emissions generated from raising livestock is more than the emissions of transportation combined. About 70% of all agricultural land is used up for raising farm animals, which contributes to water pollution, deforestation, and biodiversity destruction. The only real way that these animals would ever realistically survive is if all the farms would convert to being a sanctuary. And if they were all released into the wild, they would either starve or be eaten by predators. Overpopulation is also a major threat to life on Earth. We would need 5 more Earths in order to supply the amount of resources that humanity consumes every year. Humans are currently consuming resources at an alarming 173% every year. By 2050, we might not be able to feed everyone. Food demand will increase at an alarming rate. The world will become overcrowded. 70% of the land is highly industrialized. Viable land will slowly decrease as more and more people cause more global warming and rising sea temperature. There are almost 300 births per minute and a little over 200,000 people are born each day. One child adds almost 60 tons of carbon dioxide to the environment each year, mainly due to the products a child requires. By 2040, we might run out of fresh water, as most of the 2.5% of fresh water on Earth is in the form of ice or snow. As temperatures rise, more and more of that water will slowly melt and mix into the ocean. Desalination comes with negative environmental effects, as it produces waste and toxins that are harmful to wildlife and ecosystems, and can even raise salt levels which could be harmful to marine life. Over 5 trillion pieces of plastic are estimated to be existing in our ocean presently, with over 8.3 million tons going in it every year. By 2100, almost 100% of marine life will be risking extinction, along with almost all of coral reefs being destroyed by just 2050. As far as land pollution goes, the U.S. landfills are expected to be overfilled within 20 years. Methane, carbon dioxide, water vapor, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen all get released into the atmosphere. This creates smog and climate change. Almost 25 billion tons of topsoil are destroyed each year. Every year, about 15 billion trees are felled, with only about 2 billion seeds planted. It usually takes 20 to 30 years for one tree to grow fully. We will eventually have to resort to using an air oxygen kit in order to breathe by 2030. Premature aging will also be a threat to human life. Once more than half of the natural landscape is occupied by human development, an ecological collapse will likely fall into effect. It is also widely believed that large-scale ecosystems will collapse faster than smaller ones. Invasive species, ocean acidification, pollution, overpopulation, habitat loss, degradation, and climate change are all contributing factors to an ecological collapse. It is estimated that we have just until 2030 to permanently stop global warming emissions, and if we don't, we will reach a point of no return, which will consist of overheating of the planet, typhoons, wildfires, and floods. Yet, if pledges to stop global warming did go into effect by 2030, we would still see an increase of 2.5 degrees Celsius in the atmosphere, which would still bring the planet to a catastrophic breakdown of destruction. So we basically already have reached the point of no return. By 2100, we could reach a tipping point, leaving only about 84 years of life before an extreme collapse of human and animal life occurs. The main causes of global warming are the manufacturing of products, deforestation, transportation, powering of buildings, and consumption of resources, with China, the United States, and India as the three most polluting countries to date. The effects of resource depletion are extremely dangerous. It could lead to global famine, mass migrations, and even wars and conflicts between nations over resources. Coal, natural gas, oil, and nuclear energy will eventually run out within this century, with oil lasting about 50 years, natural gas 53, and coal up to 114 years. Conflicts over these resources, along with food and water, will intensify. Without water, we won't be able to grow any crops, drink, or clean ourselves, and will lead to an ecological collapse. Without marine life, humans will starve and suffocate from a 70% loss of our global oxygen. Without our rainforests, our agriculture will be heavily affected by weather changes in rainfall, along with floods and higher temperatures, along with an increase of pests and infections. Former forested areas will experience droughts, which will lead to floods, and erosions will destroy coral reefs and other marine habitats. Without our most reliable pollinators and other wildlife, the balance of the food web will collapse. Plant species will die off, and we will lose our agriculture. The air we breathe and our economy will degrade along with it. We will experience frequent changes in temperature, which will increase wildfires, floods, typhoons, and droughts. If nations choose to not work together, there will not be any change, as money is the top priority and the future of the planet is thrown under the bus. Advancements in technology will happen, but as time continues, we are further away from ever presently saving ourselves.